Good evening, my local drones. This is Bio Gundam here, and I'm back again for another video. So today's topic is going to be another general discussion. Me and two buddies of mine are going to be talking about, basically talking about shit in the 90s. The TDR is that we're retro fagging. Deal with it, bitches. And to help me, we have Fvlminatvs and we have Chuck. Introduce yourselves.
How you doing?
Chuck, you got to be a bit more louder.
I said hi.
Okay, much better. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so today I have these two people with me, and we're just gonna like shoot the shit about like 90s crap, anime, video games, just whatever comes up in the topic of discussion. So just to sort of kickstart this discussion. Gentlemen, what was your favorite shows from the 90s? Let's start there.
You want to start, Chuck?
Sure. Easy enough. Let's see. Favorite show. Yeah. Let me get something out of the way first. I'm not an anime fan. I'm a fan of anime. Huge difference. Does that make sense?
It does to me, but probably not to the majority of the audience.
Okay. An anime fan is somebody who primarily just all they do is consume anime. Yeah, you would kind of agree with that?
Yep.
A fan of anime is somebody that likes anime but watches other genres, is into other things. So I'm kind of, my perspective is kind of like the outside looking in. I mean, don't get me wrong. I was a hardcore anime fan for years.
Yes, I've heard the stories. I've heard the stories.
Well, then I kind of fell out of it. Now I'm kind of gotten back into it because Full kind of dragged me back in. And, I'm going back and discovering things like, I just the last 2 years watched Madoka Magica, which was amazing. One of my favorite animes of all time. I mean, it's up there with Evangelion. It's up there with, Lane. It's up there with a lot of great anime. I tried to sit through JoJo. I didn't like it. First 2 seasons were good. Third season, boring.
Yeah.
It bored me. A show like that should not bore me. I could get into that whole mess there. But favorite shows, Evangelion, obviously. It's probably...
Yeah, Evangelion is like, oh, have you watched anime from the 90s? Evangelion is like one of the first things that comes up.
It's something that I think everyone should watch, but they shouldn't start with it.
I don't think like how I started anime is that I watched the original like Full Metal Alchemist 2003 version, and I just went from there. Like I watched like a bunch of generic like rom-coms and slice of life shit. I actually didn't get into like the 90s stuff until like a little later. Like basically what I did is I watched most of the shit I got into was stuff from like the early 2000s, like that kind of period, and then I moved on to the
Toonami
90s
era.
Yeah, that's when a lot of people of your generation got into it. Was the Toonami era.
I mean,
I didn't have Toonami. I had an iPad and the internet and basically access to torrent sites. That's how I did it.
But the whole thing is that generation came into it because of Toonami. So the people you're around will watch anime because of Toonami. I mean, it was right after about 9 years after Final Fantasy VII, which pulled a lot of anime fans in. I remember watching commercial for Final Fantasy VII at the movie. The trailer for Final Fantasy VII at the movie. Think about that. You have a video game trailer at the movies. And when we saw it, it blew our goddamn mind.
And that never happened.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't as good as 6, but that's here nor there.
Yeah,
hot take.
It's actually funny that you say
it's called reality.
It's actually funny that you say that because like they're re-releasing Final Fantasy VII, and the first thing I see on fucking Danboro or Zero-chan is like Tifa and Tifa Ludes. I'm like, yep, sounds about right.
Well, it's funny because my brother just got it and beat it, and that's a whole nother ball of wax to get into. Remake, but
don't get me started on it.
I'm not gonna play it, but I'm like now rather interested in the because I'm going through like fucking Danboro and Gelboro. I'm looking at all this fucking art, and I'm like, oh, Tifa's kind of hot. Maybe I should play the original.
Well,
it's good.
But I mean, you do point out an interesting thing is like Final Fantasy VII though did help pull a lot of people into anime, and it was like when Toonami hit, it was like 8 years after that or so.
Yeah,
it was like 2000, 2001.
But you had that general kind of like moving towards it. It became a lot more mainstream, and a lot of the call them casual anime fans got started, I mean, again, you talk about, favorite anime.
Well,
I love all kinds of weird shit. Like, I love terrible anime. I love romance anime. I mean, I'm all over the fucking place. So,
I like a wide slew of... I too like a wide slew of things. Like, even though, like, pardon me, like, at the beginning, I was, like, kind of like a hardcore anime fan. I started, branching out into different shit. It's actually funny because like I actually really got into like the period drama shit as well. Like I watched Samurai Champloo, The Tale of Genji, all this like samurai ninja shit, and then that inspired me. It's just like, oh, I wonder what these things are referencing. And then through anime, I got into reading history books, and then it became like this love for history and philosophy and stuff like that. Like I was always a bookworm back in the day, but I never like got into it that hardcore. And sort of thanks to anime, it sort of like opened that door up. And then it's actually funny to me because for me, like anime became like the gateway to so many other fucking things. Like for good or for ill.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I hate to say it. Look at the mid '90s when you had the like a big like that cyberpunk mentality came through, and that all came from Neuromancer, things like
William Gibson books,
Blade Runner,
Ghost in the Shell.
Gibson. But it kind of fed into anime, and now that anime kind of feeds back into America, and they finally discover the stuff that came out 10 years before that. Yeah. I mean, you had Bubblegum Crisis, things like that. They kind of that chrome cool idea, that really, snazzy, bright, just sleek looking. I mean, Ghost in the Shell is a great example,
Oh yeah, the original movie looks fucking amazing. And by the way, speaking of Ghost in the Shell, I actually have the original manga behind on my shelf. My Scottish grandmother like bought me like hardback copies of like the original manga print. Mm-hmm. It still looks fucking good, and it's amazing, and they're completely hand drawn. And some of the stuff that this guy was predicting, it is like almost uncanny. Like in Ghost in the Shell, they like people today complain like technology is taking over our lives, and it's like and I like in the IT class I do because I study IT at college. Mm-hmm. Like they basically say like, oh yeah, IT's taking over our lives. I mean, like, look what you can do with your fucking phones. I mean, you can play video games. You can surf the internet. You could download terabytes of porn on it. Like it's like technology is literally taking over lives. You can fucking play Skyrim on a smart fridge.
Yeah, let's put this in example. I have an older computer, so I don't use my computer to game. I use GeoForce Now or GeoForce Experience, whatever the heck it's called. I just started using it like a month ago, and I'm playing 7 Days to Die. I'm playing the newest games out there, streaming it over my internet connection. I mean, just think about that. That's insane. 5 years ago, that was like, oh, that'll never happen. Nvidia actually did it right. Fuck Stadia. Stadia's garbage, but yeah, I mean, again, but that all goes back to that William Gibson motif that you saw 10 years before it even really got into anime, or 5 years, it again feeds into the anime, which feeds back into the fandom who discover it. We were just talking about it before the podcast, things 10 years before it happened, and then it, you know what I mean? Like that idea, but the problem is now it's not so much. I mean, there's nothing new that's really good coming out that's taking from previous source material. It's just rehashing the same shit.
Yeah. Like if you look at a lot of like modern shows today, and this is not a cast we're going to say like all modern shows is terrible, because there are some.
No, a lot of them are though.
Yeah, no, there are a lot of them that are. There are a few standouts, but compared to the quality that we had like back in the 90s and 80s, like.
Well, I do need to point out that there was a lot of bad shit back in the 90s, but there was a difference.
Yeah,
you're absolutely correct.
There was a huge difference back in the 80s and 90s, and it's like the bad shit was bad, but it was still interesting, right? It was still trying to do something that was different. It was still trying to
cyber, like those shows where it's like those biotechnological life forms like Guyver and shit, like that kind of shit. Like there was some shit shows that came from that concept, but goddamn was it entertainingly bad.
Yeah, Chuck, do you remember the live action Guyver that had Mark Hamill?
Yeah, it was great with JJ or whatever.
Oh god, I haven't seen that, but I've heard
Mark
some
Hamill was in that, by the way.
He was.
Yeah, Mark Hamill, his best acting performance was in Guyver. It's like when I met Tom Hanks, I told him I loved him in Bosom Buddies. You don't know about that show, do you, Bio? Go ahead, Google Bosom Buddies when you get a chance.
Yeah. I'm afraid. I'm scared. Anyway,
you should be.
Yeah,
it's fun though.
I know.
Well,
go ahead.
Yeah, well, it's funny because like it was also like really, really different back then, right? I mean, I know I've said this, elsewhere, and like Chuck and I, like we go way back. We met in high school, and we're still friends. And we like he was one of the guys who helped me get into anime, and I was always already interested in it because I had seen Robotech, I'd seen a lot of the old stuff, but like it wasn't until like I started noticing at the shelf on like, remember it was Sam Goody and Suncoast Video and stuff, Chuck.
Oh yeah,
the mall.
that's where we used to buy our hentai because they never carded us.
Yeah, they had the
Did
Japanimation
you,
shelf.
oh, did you have like the hentai dealer? Like he's got the lab coat. He's got like the
Oh no, this was a
look
major
at.
story. You just walk in and buy it.
Oh,
But
fuck
the thing is,
yeah.
back then,
They didn't know. They did.
Yeah, they had
not
no
know.
idea.
It said absolutely not for children on it, but like it just.
Yeah, I mean, you're 16. The internet wasn't really a thing back then. I mean, we had 56K connections if you were lucky. So
Yeah.
how did you get your porn? That was the closest you could get.
Yeah.
I mean, you had to go to like backroom deals, with black. No, you just went to Sam Goody and bought it off the shelf.
Yeah, they didn't get wise to that shit until later.
Oh, a long time, and then they started carding, but by that time they were 18, so what didn't
Yeah,
matter.
it didn't matter. Yeah, once you show up with like shit like Magical Twilight or Ray Ray or like Legend of the Overfeed.
Oh, Legend of the
God.
OV. I have to fucking watch
La
that.
Blue
It's on the
Girl.
list.
La Blue Girl. That was like
cool devices.
cool devices is the yeah, and you just walk up to them and you only get like one episode, and it was like $30, but
What was it,
I've seen a couple of episodes of Cool Devices. It's pretty fucking good.
it's
I love disturbing shit, so don't even get me started. Full nose, man.
oh yeah.
I'm keeping it nice right now.
Yeah, but
Don't
it's
go
like
down that road.
but that's the funny thing is like you had the Japanimation section, and that's what it was called, and you could look at you just look at that section in Sam Goody or Suncoast or whatever, and they had all the VHSs. This was in the age before like DVDs and shit, obviously, and I noticed it was all the same kind of art style, and I realized like, wait, it's not, this stuff with this art style is from Japan, and it's just everything started clicking. I think I was like in middle school when I first started noticing that.
It's funny. It's actually funny because I had that same realization too. Because like when I watched Fullmetal Alchemist, because like I didn't have an idea what anime was. Like I had a feeling I was like, oh, it's from Japan, but then it suddenly clicked because I was like, oh wait, if I like this show and I like this aesthetic, what else there is? And I was realizing, oh wait, Digimon's an anime, Dragon Ball Z's an anime. Oh, I actually like this, and then it like kind of clicked. Like it's like, I guess I was just like, oh, maybe I should see what else this medium has to offer me. And then 950 shows later,
that's part of the difference too. Is like back in the day, like we didn't have the ability to stream it. We didn't have the ability to go out and buy 20 episodes off of and download them or whatever. Well, we had to go to Suncoast Video and buy one VHS cassette with 2 episodes on it for like $30 or $25 or $30, which in today's money is like somewhere between like $45 or so and like $60.
But
it's different.
It's funny. Like I think back to that, and what it made you do. It's like when you bought a bad game. If you bought a bad anime, you didn't just watch it once and throw it in the corner because you didn't have a lot of money to spend. So you bought that bad show or that bad game, and you played the shit out of it. You watched the shit out of it. Even you knew it was terrible, but you spent $40 or $30 on it. So you're gonna get your money's worth.
Yeah.
I mean, how many times have you watch Shadows?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
Which is by far the best American dub ever. I mean, it's second. Well, I won't mention the legend, but we'll
what you want? Black? What? Bible Black? I want to fuck her.
Oh no, dude, you don't know what bad is.
You don't know what bad dubs. Well, I mean, that's actually the funny thing is. Like seriously, like Neon Genesis Evangelion was like the first good dub that I can remember seeing, and like I still preferred the Japanese, but like it was the first good dub that I can remember.
I mean, you're wrong on that, but that's okay. I mean,
oh, shots fired.
I'm a dub guy. I'll say it. I don't care.
He's a peasant.
A dub guy. Oh, I'm a peasant. I'm sorry. I'm
Dude,
too,
you remind me of my
bro.
buddy, like, Average Espy. He's like a big Sentai Filmworks fag. So we used to make the joke of, like, Average Espy, sponsored by Sentai Filmworks.
But, yeah, no, the
Derail.
The debate goes back, man. The debate is old. The dubs versus subs.
And ironically, I have friends in both camps. Like, I don't really like I lean towards more the Japanese, but there's some dubs I find tolerable. I'm like good. Like I thought the Log Horizon dub was pretty good. Like and that's after like reading the book. Like when I read the book and like listen to the sub and dub, I'm just like, yeah, this is pretty good.
Well, that's also brought about by, and that's the thing is like he mentioned Toonami, and it's like Toonami actually brought about like decent dubbing, and that's like I mean I remember Cowboy Bebop was a legit dub, and it sounded pretty decent. It had decent voice acting. I think Macross Plus had pretty decent voice acting too, but but then the vast majority of the stuff that you got on TV up until then was definitely dubbed poorly. I mean, it was just crapped out for it was edited down for children, and you're like, I remember Dragon Ball Z, it's like they weren't going to kill you, they were going to send you to another dimension.
That was Yu-Gi-Oh, dude.
They did that in Yu-Gi-Oh too.
Yes,
Yu-Gi-Oh was
here's some deeper for you, the original premise of Yu-Gi-Oh. We'll wear this part out, but the original premise of Yu-Gi-Oh, was originally about a bunch of Satanists from hell, a bunch of Satanists summoning monsters from hell and sacrificing virgins to empower them. And the duels are close to death games, and if you lose, you're gonna die in really horrible ways. But that was the original concept, and it was considered way too extreme for its time. And with
for a card game that kids are gonna play, I can see that.
Yeah, you're a little off on your Yu-Gi-Oh.
No, that was the original concept, and then they changed it.
Yu-Gi-Oh! Zero. I know what you're talking about.
Dude, Yu-Gi-Oh! Zero was fucking amazing.
I'm not disagreeing with you.
There's this episode where he sets this guy on fire. It's great.
Yeah. It is hardcore.
Yeah, it is
Chuck is a Yu-Gi-Oh fan, so
I love Yu-Gi-Oh as well. I've got boxes of Yu-Gi-Oh cards. I collect them like a fucking junkie. But anyway, but the original Yu-Gi-Oh was fucking that, and it's holy shit. And then when they actually focus more on the card game, you notice that in the fucking 4Kids version, instead of having guns, I'd point make finger guns and shit like that. Or remove the skill sword, or remove the skill sword, there's this episode where Yugi's dueling this wizard guy, and they're both their legs are chained, and the skill sword's coming closer and closer to them. In the 4Kids, it was the energy disc of death, but in the sub, it's it's an actual fucking skill sword, and it's holy shit, this is Saw.
Well, 4Kids really screwed over a lot of stuff. I mean, they screwed over. They ruined Vision of Escaflowne, and they ruined Card Captor Sakura. They just changed it completely to Card Captors. They changed the name, and then they just cut out the first, I think, 10 episodes, which is they just jump into the middle of the show. And I think they cut out the first 2 episodes of Escaflowne. So,
oh god, the dub version of Escaflowne is so.
It is bad too.
Oh, don't get me started. That was a travesty. It was on Fox Kids. It was.
4Kids was on Fox, and it was just
terrible.
Oh yeah.
Dude, if you want to see terrible shit, you should watch the dub for Digimon. Now, I think the dub voice acting was fine, but they censored some shit. They censored a lot of the they censored some of the more darker elements of the show. There's a scene where one of the Digimon pulls a fucking gun out on TK and tries to shoot him point blank. And there's another episode where another Digimon just literally just executes it, basically kills his comrade execution style. Just straight up does it, just bam. And it's and I was Jesus, this is brutal as fuck. And then the dub, you don't get that. You have to watch the sub to get that clip. And I'm damn, this makes the show way better.
Nah, it's funny though, because kind of going a little bit back to what we were saying, it's what Chuck was talking about though, with that, you got that one video, right? And this is kind of what kind of feeds a lot of my frustration with anime fandom today, and I imagine Chuck to agree, is that idea that it's just so easy. It's so easy for you to get. Whereas back in the day, we had to go to Suncoast Video. You needed a job first. You needed to get a high school job, right? And so you needed a car, and you needed to be able to drive there. So you needed to be able to pay for the car. You had to drive there, do the work, then go to the mall, and then go to the video store and buy it. And you were taking a risk because there wasn't a lot of word of mouth, even unless you had a decent internet connection. It was kind of tough to get that word of mouth, and also the rarity of it all. Also, kind of you might know it's crap on some level, but you got so little anime. It was so hard. You worked so hard for it. It kind of
you either got really good shit or you got really terrible.
That's it. Yeah,
there was really no mediocre.
There was not a lot of mediocre.
And I want to ask you that question. Do you think that because you had to work for it, and because do you think there was a better sense of community when it was back in those days when you couldn't get it so easily. Because, like, one of the things that attracted me to anime is that not many people fucking heard about it. Like, not even my stepdad had heard of anime. You know, he grew up watching Sailor Moon and shit. Obviously, like, you know, he's around your generation, so he knows.
Yeah, he's our age.
Yeah, he knows, like, he watched Sailor Moon. In fact, he was the one that got me into Sailor Moon because he says, no, you gotta watch the show, it's amazing. Like, there's all this shit, there's, like, this chick gets, like, raped in one episode and shit. Like, it was like, they telling me about the show, it's like, yeah, he said, you gotta watch it, it's amazing. I said, like, I watched it, it's like, oh, damn, this is good, I like this. I watched the original 90s version, all fucking 200 and something episodes of it all. I binge watched it all. Because I'm a mad lad, but, you know, what I liked about, like, the anime, and so, like, what I liked about it was that there was this mystique about it, because no one really knew about it, you know? And when people would see books I'm reading or manga I'm reading, they'd be like, oh, what's that? And it's like, oh, it's manga. And it's like, oh, what's that? And it's like some people be like, oh, I've heard of manga. It's the Chinese comic books. And it's like, yeah, it's that. And it's like, oh, that people would be like, yeah, people would be like, oh, that's interesting. It's like, oh, what's that? It's like, oh, it's anime. Oh, yeah, the Chinese cartoons. Yeah, I've heard of anime. You know, I watched Dragon Ball, stuff like that. Like, you know, what attracted me to it was that not many people knew about it. And then, you know, there were people who sort of were more into it, you know, and I would have, like, discussions with people. Yeah, you know, I used to have, like, a, you know, an acquaintance of mine where we used to, like, discuss, like, Tokyo Ghoul and stuff, you know? Because we're both fans of it, and we would just, like, talk about it and shoot the shit about fairies and stuff. Like, you know, like, I actually found that anime allowed me to sort of help connect with people, and a part of it was that mystique. And I feel that the mystique is now gone.
That's what happens when you go mainstream.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, again, that mystique is gone. It used to be special. I mean, granted, it's funny because, like, one of the things Chuck said about, like, growing up is, like, we got really into anime, but we were also into a lot of other stuff at the same time. And there was a lot of cross-pollinization, right? It was, we knew people who were just into anime. Then that was it. That's all they consumed. And it's funny, like, I'm at that stage now where it's, like, almost everything I consume anymore is, like, that is modern, is anime. But that's because, like, everything else I was into is dead. You know, like we used to be really into Star Trek. We used to read a lot of science fiction.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, science fiction on the store shelves. Yeah, that's what gets pushed and published now. Yeah, is pretty much dead. We used to read a lot of fantasy novels. We used to play Dungeons and Dragons. I mean, we were into a lot of shit. I mean, we watched Stargate SG-1. We watched Babylon 5.
Oh, so good.
Farscape, when that was coming out, was awesome. You know, we watched, you know, so it was like there was a lot of, like, shit that, you know, we liked to watch that was still, a lot of it was fringe, but, you know, as time went on, either of those shows just, like, kind of like, you know, you could go and find the old Farscape episodes on Netflix, but it's not like they're making anything new.
No.
And they're, you know, everything nowadays is just so politically weighed down. But even then, like, anime was different. And once we started realizing, like, what was being brought over and put on TV was either heavily censored, or just the stuff for kids, like what they put on Nick Jr.
Yep.
We started finding this, like, really bloody shit, really messed up shit.
Oh, dude, you know, fucking
really,
berserk.
really violent stuff.
Tell me why. Like when I like watched Berserk, I was like, holy shit. Oh fuck.
He'll be back. There he is.
Yeah, it is. Like,
yeah, sorry.
Like some of the stuff I really got into was the fucking, like, the brutal stuff. Like, I was like especially the fucking 80s, like Devilman, Maldonte, and all that shit. I was like, fuck yeah.
I remember the first time I watched Devilman. We were in high school and I came over your house.
Yep.
And that's the other thing. Like, watching anime was a social thing. Like watching anime was always a social thing. Like, I remember the summer after my freshman year, every time a new Evangelion tape came out, I went to Suncoast.
Yep.
And with the money I was getting while I was working, I bought the new tape, and I was, like, checking the internet constantly to see when a new release was going.
And this bastard, he had spoilers. He had to keep his freaking mouth shut. Now, he wanted to run his mouth a mile a minute, but he kept it together. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
If you know how I feel about spoilers. I waited 2 years to see a movie. I finally sat down and watched it last week. Endgame. I finally watched Endgame. But it was okay. Actually, it was I have major complaints about that movie, but I won't go into all that now. But it took me 2 years to finally sit down and watch it. This guy, he was like 8 episodes ahead. He had already seen the movie, and he's sitting there chomping at the bit to tell us everything. And we're like, no, shut up.
And that time at the diner.
Yeah. I'm like,
that time at
it's actually
the time at the diner.
Actually,
oh yeah,
like it's actually funny that you say that, because it's like, you know, some of the people that I did interact with, you know, I actually did want to watch anime with them, or like watch anime with people, because it's just kind of fun. Like, even if we don't, like, even if the show's like crap and it's just us like dunking on it, like, but that's fun, you know. Like, for example, with the person I was talking about when we talked about Tokyo Ghoul, like, yeah, I'm pretty sure, like, I admit it's not the greatest series out there, but you know, the discussion was fun, and you know, there's sometimes we make fun of it, like for some things that happen, but it was fun. It was healthy.
It wasn't just fun. I mean, that was one of the worst things about being knowing all the damn spoilers and shit is for like something like Evangelion. That was like, it was a water cooler show, but it was more than just a water cooler show, like Game of Thrones or whatever. I mean, this show, people had theories, man.
Let me break that down for you real quick. One of the biggest sites that I came across when Ava was at its full breadth and width, you know, consuming the fandom. I mean, you either loved it or you hated back then. There was very few indifferent people. And I remember there were fan sites out there where there were fans making their own. I mean, yeah, fanfics are big today, but then we had interactive. Remember Ava R?
Oh my god!
Yeah.
I completely forgot about that.
They had their own custom scripts. They had their own custom soundtrack. They had their own custom voice actors. And this is 20 years ago. Before, you know, nowadays, it wouldn't be a big thing. But they had an interactive website. They had spoilers. I remember I didn't read anything on there until I literally had finished the show, because I didn't want to be spoiled. And they had their own alternate universe thing going on, and that was a big thing. Like, I remember going there every other day, going, man, what they got? I mean, it's kind of died now, but to see that back, you know, at the time, you know, it blew my mind. I mean, even today.
And I actually, I want to ask you about this. I want to ask you this question: do you believe that because of how easy it is to get hold of anime, and how basically anime is dying and shit, do you believe that, like, people who are truly passionate about the medium, do you believe that those people are dying out? You know, like,
that's a multifaceted question. The big problem with anime is the abundance, and what. Okay, you have to answer why is there an abundance? Because there are consumers, right? People want to eat it. People want to consume what's out there. All right, I'm going to sidetrack for just a second. But the whole thing is anime producers need to make a lot of crap. They just have to make a lot. So what happened? And Full knows my biggest complaint about anime, well, one of my biggest, is CGI, is how easy it is compared to what it was 10, 20, 30 years ago. Where, go back, I heard your podcast from a couple of days ago. You guys were talking about Macross Plus and how beautifully it was animated. That's passion, that's craftsmanship. I mean, one of my favorite animes ever is Galaxy Express 39. I mean, some of it looked janky, but the passion and the craftsmanship of it, you can see the work that was put in today. One isekai looks like another isekai, looks like another isekai, looks like another isekai. It's because they all use the same tools. There's no passion, there's no love. So what they do is it's all mass-produced garbage to meet a deadline. So you get your light novels, you get all this crap that's just thrown out to the public. So yeah, you're right. It's easier to get, but people don't watch it anymore. They consume it, which is a huge difference.
and I actually feel that because of that, it's creating the type of mindset, and I think Fvlminatvs will know who I'm talking about. We're talking about that guy in the server that wants anime to be more mainstream so he won't be beaten up in school.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, listen, you know who you are.
We're back on that guy.
Listen, guy that we're talking about, you know exactly who you are. But, do you believe that will become, it will become the common anime fan instead of, like, the people that, you know, discovered it and realized, oh shit, there's this whole new fucking world out there that I didn't know about, and, like, because...
That is good.
Well, I'm just starting to feel like, do you feel that anime, like, the culture around it is dying in the West? Do you feel like the mystique...
It's dead. It's been dead.
All right.
It is dead. I mean, look at your average anime fan today. I mean, really, what's the flavor of the week? And there aren't fans of anime anymore. There are fans of a genre and a specific genre. There are isekai fans. There are shoujo fans. There are shonen fans. There are lolly fans. There are fans of anime. Like, I can name 30 different shows off the top of my head that I can, you know, that are completely different. I can go from, you know, Oh My Goddess to
Oh My Goddess. I actually read the entire manga of that.
Oh, let him finish, Bio.
Sorry.
But to Street Fighter, I consume anime on the. I'm a little different than some people. I consume what I want, depending on the mood I'm in. So if I want a sappy anime, I'll put on. Oh my god, I'll put on Fushigi. I'll put it on whatever that meets that mood. But if I want twisted, effed up, I can go a whole different route. And most fans aren't that. What's the word I'm looking for?
Eclectic.
I wouldn't use the word eclectic as opposed to a broad fan. They're a fan of a specific genre. They watch fighting anime. They watch isekai. That's all they watch. And that doesn't make you an anime fan anymore. That makes you a fan of just a genre. Not even a genre. Like,
makes you a consumer.
Yeah, exactly. And there's so much that's coming out that you just, I like isekai. I like, couple here and there. I watched, what was that one? The Reluctant Hero or what the hell?
Cautious Hero is overly cautious. He's OP, but he's overly cautious.
I quite enjoyed that.
That show was pretty. I actually like that show. Like,
so did I.
I'm in a light novel podcast, so obviously I've read a decent chunk of light novels. Some of them are good, some of them are bad. Full light novels, I should say. But like Cautious Hero, I actually quite liked. It was very funny and it was, I don't know, somewhat refreshing, and it was refreshing in a sense. Like,
I'm not disagreeing. I quite enjoyed that. But there are people that's all they consume, and so if you give them anything out their comfort zone, they're like, oh, I don't like that. Like, well, did you even watch? Like, I tried to watch JoJo. Like, I heard all the memes and the world. I knew all that, and I went into it. And again, the first 2 seasons were nice. They were good. I quite enjoyed them. And then by the 3rd season, it was like, look at us be random because we're self-aware now.
Yeah,
and it's like
I'm trying too hard. Like, I think Full can like attest to us. I mean, if you look at all the shit that I have seen, like, I'm not a fan of any specific genre. I've watched all sorts of shit. All right, I've watched Slice of Life. I've watched Adventure. I've watched Ecchi. I've watched Yaoi and Yuri. I've watched fucking vampire shows. I've watched Seinen. I've watched Josei. I've watched all this shit. And the reason why I watch all this shit is because it's different. And that's one of the things I liked about anime is because it's different from Western cartoons. It's different. Like, it's like, and I think we touched upon this, like, in the Escaflow podcast, where we have, like, prescriptive and descriptive shows. Like, I watched all that fucking shit, alright? Because it was different. Because when I watched, like, Fullmetal Alchemist 2003, it was like, holy shit. Like, they have, like, a fucking war in the middle of the city, and they show you the consequences. They show you the blood. They show the corpses. They show, like, all the shit. And I never saw that in a fucking cartoon. Like, in a cartoon, it would be like, oh, that happened, but you're not going to see it. Or if you see it, it's going to be like a brief flashback, but you're not going to see any of the consequences. Like, you're not going to see the destroyed you're not going to see the destroyed buildings. You're not going to see, like, the bodies and blood bathed through the streets.
Well, I hate to tell you this, but there's lots and lots and lots of shows that don't do that either, but I'll tell you exactly why. Because they don't want to animate it. It takes too much time. And it gets back to, like, they're just churning stuff out, and you get more anime in a single season now than you had in entire years back in the 1990s. So, like, we're making 4, 5, maybe 6 times the amount of anime per year than we were, back in the 1990s. And, there's just, you can't watch it all. A lot of it's going to be the same. A lot of it's going to be chasing trends and stuff like that. And then, granted, there's always been that. Like, during the 1980s, you had the Real Robot boom, right? But even then, like, the number of Real Robot shows that were made are nowhere near the volume of amount that you have with the isekai getting made. I mean, you got isekai through my smartphone, right? You got isekai where they're running an izakaya, and it's on the border between two worlds, ours and the other. You've got I reincarnated as a slime. You've got and people keep getting the same thing keeps happening over and over. People keep getting hit by trucks and getting isekai, and it's like I understand, like, why the trend is there, and a lot of the trend is I talked to Joe from Pause and Select, and it's very interesting and revealing in that how a lot of it is based on people trying to cope with changes in their MMOs and how the sense of community was lost in MMOs and stuff like that. And I find that interesting, but at the same time, it's just like, man, we're just inundated. Like, I don't think, like, izakaya is, a part of this overarching. It comes off as like basically food porn.
Yeah.
Oh, look how great Japanese cuisine is because people come over and it's and okay, that's nice and cute, but like we have 500 shows like this season, right? And back, I just feel like I really do feel like back in the day we had more variety. Because
I would agree. Like,
really
even though there were like trends and shit, like fucking mecha dominated for like a couple of decades, but even then, like there was still fucking variety out there. I mean, if you go on my anime list or any chart, and look at some of the shows that were coming out during the 1980s and in the 90s. I mean, you had all sorts of shit. Like you had space westerns, you had space westerns like Trigun, Outlaw Star, Cowboy Bebop. You had harem shows.
To illustrate your point, right? Chuck, you and me, let's think of some of the shows that we watched a lot when we were in high school and after, before 2000, right? That we got at what are some of the things we got at when we rented? Let's just even stick with rented. What did we rent?
Ninja Scroll, Vampire Hunter D, Ghost in the Shell, Bubblegum Crisis. I guess it'd be the tail end of high school was Ava, Lane, keep going.
Rama 1/2.
Rama 1/2. I didn't rent that, but I did watch it. I watched the shit out of it.
Yeah.
God, what a good show. Tenchi Muyo, which near the end of the 90s, but I did quite enjoy that too.
Oh my goddess.
Oh my goddess. Kite. Remember Kite?
Oh yeah.
I've heard of Kite. I've never watched it though.
Kite is a terrible anime that is beautiful to look at. It's like X 1999, which is watch X 1999 without the sound, or just watch it in Japanese without the subtitle. Honestly,
sounds good.
It is gorgeous, but the story is meant for people who read the whole manga.
Mm-hmm.
It's really
wait. Is X 1999 the one made by Clamp?
Yes. Oh my god, it is gorgeous. But it's also it's not made. It's made for fans that have read the manga, or you know what I mean. You have to have read the manga to understand what the hell's going on. But it's gorgeous to look at.
Yeah.
Remember Street Fighter when that came out? God.
The animated series, the movie.
No, the movie, not the animated series. The movie was the animated movie was fantastic. But I gotta make sure I don't.
Actually, that is one where the dub is better because they changed all the music.
I completely agree with you.
Because like the Chun-Li fight scene in Japanese comes off as like really creepy and rapey.
Yeah.
But like they play KMFDM in the American dub, and it's just
badass.
It is a completely different scene. It is like high octane. These two motherfuckers are trying to kill each other, and it's just like when she throws the couch at him, it's like desperation in like trying not to get raped in the Japanese version, and when she throws the couch at him in the English dub, because of the music is so different.
Yeah, you're like fuck yeah.
You're like, yeah, fucking get him, all right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You're like, you're fired up.
Yeah.
The dub was the acting wasn't great. I mean, bitch, I'll make you suffer. That's
it's
bad.
It's the definition of popcorn anime. I mean,
it is.
Pop it in, you enjoy the spectacle, the ride. I mean, Ninja Scroll is a good example of that.
Ninja Scroll, that was some good shit. Like, Fvlminatvs, like, you've got to watch Ninja Scroll, and I watched it, and it's like, oh my god, this is great, this is amazing.
Yeah. I mean, he puts the whole titty in his mouth. The whole titty.
And he fucking dies, too. It's great.
Well, obviously, but still. I've never seen that scene going, wow, that's awesome. I mean, I'm 16 years old watching going, he's just banging that chick having a conversation. That's cool.
The board meeting scene. The board meeting.
But back then they weren't. I was just saying. Today they're afraid to experiment with anything. Back then,
and that's what I fucking hate because what I liked about anime is it wasn't afraid to take risks. It wasn't afraid to go down a story path that other creators would avoid because of being scrutinized. I mean, if you look at fucking anime today, I have heard stories of light novel authors from Japan being harassed by fucking Twitter mobs, and half these guys don't even speak fucking English. And there's a few times where or mangakas, and sometimes I just comment on these pages like
a lot of it's also from China. I mean, the whole Boku no Hero Academia thing has just the Twitter harassment coming from both American leftist fans and just not even leftists, just American fans.
I'm like, just leave this.
And then Chinese
alone.
Fans, it's just I'm
just like, leave this fucker, leave this guy alone.
If I was him, I would just can my Twitter account, quit, just stop writing it, and just just go do something else, write something else under a pen name,
and it's
and
like
just completely
and
change.
it's that type of shit that that annoyed the fuck out of me. I remember when the author of the manga of Tokyo Ghoul, like, he was getting throttled because, you know, the guy doesn't the guy doesn't give a fuck. Like, he will write whatever story he wants to write, and let's just say he was tackling some subject matter that, you know the usual suspects didn't exactly like, and I was just like, leave this guy alone. Like, his fucking story isn't finished. Like, let him tell the story he wants to tell. And
well,
like,
a lot of times you just deal with it. I mean, you didn't see how. I mean, I could remember back. It was summer of 1998 when we watched the episode where Ray dies in.
Oh my god! Yeah.
And you were about to throw your VCR out the goddamn window. You were so
my favorite
mad.
fucking character.
Yeah,
okay?
you were so mad. It was like, hey.
Well, it was all that build up, and she was finally, and Ano, the crazy son of a bitch, he builds his character up. Finally, she gets a personality. Finally becomes a person. Oh yeah, blow her up. I'm like, oh, you motherfucker. I'm mad now thinking about it.
I know, but
but that's the thing is, we didn't have Twitter. Maybe we would have been assholes like that if we had Twitter back then. But I mean, you just dealt with it.
No, you even then, like you appreciate. That's the thing. Back then, what anime fans in America have to realize, this isn't made for you. I know it's hard to understand. This isn't made for Americans. This is made for X generation of Japanese people. If you get it, be happy and be grateful.
And I think that actually tackles and I think that, like, tackles a very fundamental point, like, with anime viewership in the West, is that, and I've seen this type of mindset where you have these, like, people say, like, oh, I don't like this, why are there titties, or why are they doing this? And I think a part of it is practically ignorance on their part, because they don't understand Japanese culture. They don't understand it.
I don't even think it's that. I don't even think it's they don't understand Japanese culture. It's they don't understand, right, that they're not the target audience. I mean,
exactly.
I think it's the fact that this is another culture's thing is actually like 2 or 3 steps above where they're thinking.
Final
right?
Fantasy 15.
But, like, when I say they don't understand Japanese culture, I don't mean that you have to know about Japanese culture to get anime. But what I mean by that, because I didn't get the finish, is that, like, there's certain nuances that you would pick up if you understood a little bit about Japanese culture. Like, we had this discussion about, like, Yuhari. Like, when I first watched it, okay, I was like, oh, why is this such a big fucking deal? And then when I learned more about Japanese culture and stuff, I was like, oh, that's why. And it became like a light bulb moment. It's stuff like that. Like, yeah, anime is weird. Like, I'll outright say, like, anime is weird and it's not for everyone. But it doesn't mean you have to fucking change it just because you don't fucking like it. Like, if you don't like something, don't watch it.
I'm going to disagree with you there. I don't care what generation you're from, where you live. If I know your interests, I can almost guarantee I can find at least one anime that you'll like.
But the problem is that these people only watch the one fucking show. Like,
oh, exactly. I completely agree with that. But go back to my previous point when I was saying they don't consume anime; they consume genres.
Yeah, and it really fucking infuriates me. Like, they're like, we need to change this, we need to change that, and it's like, bitch, you've only watched like what, 10 shows? I've watched 900 plus.
Well, it's not even that. It's like attitude of entitlement. Right?
Yes.
That's kind of like what it is. It's just this attitude of entitlement. And it's the have it your way McDonald's Burger King school of getting your whatever. And that's the thing is, again, like, also most of the people, like the usual suspects when we bring them up, are usually not fans of anime and not even fans of a genre. They're fans of like 1 or 2, and then they're fans of like Western cartoons. And so it's like, well, if you want them to be more like Western cartoons, too bad they're not. So watch Western cartoons.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
But also there's a great degree of ignorance, especially when the usual suspects are concerned, because like Chuck brought up a couple seconds ago, and I know the point you're going to make, or at least I think I do. But like, yeah, you brought up Final Fantasy 15. Mm-hmm. What was your point about that?
That's not made for the West. It's not made for males. It's not made for middle-aged males. It's made for a certain demographic of Japanese population. It's made for it's boy band Final Fantasy. Now, is it a bad game? No. I've watched people play. It looks amazing.
My stepdad played that game. It looks cool.
It's not my cup of tea. I'm not into boy bands. It's not my thing. If it's your thing, hey, good for you. That game's for you. It's not for me. So I'm not going to pick up and play it. Do I hate it? No. I wish it was a different Final Fantasy game. Sure, because I would like to play another Final Fantasy game. But it's not made for me. it's made for a different group. So I'm not going to go in there and say, well, this guy needs to be this guy, to fit my sensibilities. Yeah, it's not made for me. That's my whole point is certain things are made for certain kinds of people in certain demographics, and they're Japanese, which is a whole different. There's a lot of anime I watch. I'm like, I don't really get that because I'm not Japanese. So that's my whole point is things are made for certain groups, and just because it's not made for you specifically doesn't mean you have the right to go there and try to change everything. Harass people on Twitter. What the fuck?
Yeah, and I think Fvlminatvs, you talked about this. It's basically what happens when a counterculture goes mainstream. And Fvlminatvs, I just want to ask you something. Like, I think, could you talk about, because I think you said this in a discussion once about the A otaku and the B otaku. Like, could you?
Oh, a lot of that. I mean, it kind of dovetails a little bit with what Libido came and said in videos, but a lot of it I kind of keyed in on when reading some Patrick Galbraith stuff.
Could you talk about that stuff? Because I think I think a good topic
is the idea of Japan is, and again, this is something that's very, very lost, is you have a degree of, Galbraith says there's a normative and otaku. Libido came and says there's A type, B type, and then a kind of fuzzy C type. I kind of view it as there's different kinds of otaku. Generally speaking, there's the ones that are outward and the ones that are inward, and everybody's going to have a slightly different look at it, but and mostly I get this idea from what the state of otaku were like in the 80s and 90s, because it was easier to. That's a part of the problem I think I have too with anime and stuff like that today, is through the internet, through fanzines, through shows like Otaku no Video or stuff like that. We actually had a better understanding of what the otaku were like in the 80s and 90s than we do now. One of the things that drives me nuts is I know nothing about what's going on in Japan because nobody's reporting on it. Nobody's posting anything about it. There is no discussion on it. And not only, to make matters worse, now you have these Western companies that are trying to influence things. And it's I want to know what the otaku think. I want to know what's going on with them. What is their mindset? Because I know it started to change. Because you had these different types of otaku. You had if you watch Otaku no Video, you can kind of sort of see some of them at work. You have this, the main character, the Toshio Okada type, the guy who founded Gainax, where they're very outward, we're going to change the world. We, very positive, and a lot of times they make the mecha stuff. And then you have the other ones that make a lot of the more inward kind of really dealing with otaku concepts, not in interaction with other ideas, but kind of in a not in a vacuum either, but kind of in a sort of, it's hard for me to explain because I haven't thought about this in a while either, and this is a little off topic, but
I think it's a good idea if we talk about the background of where anime comes from, because the otaku culture is so ingrained of what anime became to a certain extent.
Okay, it was very once you start looking at what otaku culture was so because otaku grew out of the manias of the 1960s and 1970s.
Yes, I remember reading a book that talked about how train mania was a thing, because and it's Joe from Paws and Sled gave me these books, and they're so fucking fascinating. I'm like, oh my god.
Oh yeah, I've read a bunch of them myself, and so you look at how you get these guys Miyazaki, Hayao Miyazaki, and who was really into planes and stuff like that. You got Osamu Tezuka, you got Go Nagai, you get Yoshiyuki Tomino, you got Leiji Matsumoto. You got these guys, and they're not otaku, but they're kind of the grandfathers or the uncles or godfathers of otaku, because they're, a lot of times, some of them were highly influenced by special effects, movies like Godzilla, and then the whole tokusatsu thing emerging.
Yeah, Kamen Rider, that shit is lit.
They got, and in some cases, they couldn't, because of whatever was going on in the industry, they themselves might not have been able to get in that, but they got into animation instead, because you could still do a lot of stuff on animation. And out of that grew this, by the early to mid 80s, this new generation of fans is crystallizing, and they're becoming the otaku. And you watch movies like Otaku no Video, or you watch
Train Man
dramas Train Man's got there's issues with Train Man, but there's issues with Densho Otoko, but kind of like we'll leave that to the side for now. But if you watch and I mean stuff like that looks at the late 70s and into the 80s, stuff like Otaku no Video, stuff like that drama Blue Blazes, Aoi Hono, where you have the guy who's going to college, he wants to learn how to be an animator, he ends up in class with Hideaki Anno and Toshio Okada, and he sets himself up in his head as like Anno's rival, and Anno just doesn't even freaking notice him. And like, which is hilarious. And but that's the thing, is it shows a lot of the mentality that these guys are going to be the ones who become like eventually, like Toshio Okada, Hideaki Anno, a couple other guys in the class, they end up becoming Gainax. They end up founding Studio Trigger. Like a lot of these characters a lot of these real people are depicted in the show, and a lot of them have some kind of like equivalent in Otaku no Video. And you watch this stuff, and there's just such a positivity. There's just such this sense of, we're on to something. We can change the world. Like, this is magical. Like this idea that what we've got our hands on is something special. And we see the world in a different way from everybody else. We dream. And what happened, I mean, Toshio Okada kind of like drops out of, like, he's the Otak King. And somewhere in the mid-aughts, everybody looks at, and he kind of looks at himself as, I'm not an otaku anymore. And a lot of people like kind of disparagingly look on him as this old has-been. And it's like, all right, I kind of, because he is critical of where otaku have gone. But at the same time, I understand where he's coming from, because he was like, although I differ from him in that I got Moe after a while, I started to get it. But he never did. He was like, I just don't get Moe. But at the same time, it's like, I feel like whoever or whatever is producing and pushing forward the movement, and this is a gut feeling. I have no proof because I don't know what's going on the ground over there. But I just got this gut feeling that there's this loss of hope, this loss of, we're going to change the world. And there's this kind of like sense of anime is more escapist than it used to be. And now you could argue like, yes, anime has always been
I actually had the
escapist,
discussion with a buddy of mine who runs a Lightning podcast. Like, literally said to him, like, if you look at more modern shows, it's more escapist than anything else. Like, there's definitely like this element of escapism, but continue.
But there's different types of escapism, right? There's escapism that when the show's over, you're inspired by what you saw, right? And this kind of goes back to the whole like, we've got an anime making machine, and we're just churning out content, and it's this well, you don't have time to reflect because you're on to the next thing to consume. That's part of it, and it never seems to really do a lot to inspire. I mean, a lot of the shows I've watched I've really liked, but never, they're all missing that kind of special. This isn't blanket. This isn't blanket, because I have run into shows from the 10s that I've noticed that have that, but they're few and far between. Most of what I watch is just, it's like it's mass produced blah. It really does feel like that. And I know a lot of people, I think it could be partly because like the only things that got adapted back in the 80s and 90s into an anime, because like almost everything is an adaptation anymore. Very few things are original compared to before, right? And that's part of the problem, is very few things are original. We still have original anime being made, but not as many. But anyway, or at least the percentage is much lower. And a lot of stuff is adaptations. The best of the best really got adapted back in the day. Only stuff that like really warranted an adaptation got an adaptation. It had to be something special, right? It had to be something where they could really, like the Sailor Moon. Sailor Moon was really big as a manga, and sometimes they did it to boost sales. That's true.
That's obvious. Like, but they have to make money, but like.
But if it was good, like you also not just boosted sales for the manga, you also created all this other peripheral stuff that you knew were going to sell, especially to the otaku demographic.
Yeah, and I actually watched Sailor Moon, and I was just like, I watched the original 90s version, and yeah, people may complain about like the fillers and shit and some of like the episodes, but like I really enjoyed it because it had this magic and spark for it, and like I actually gave a shit about the characters, which is surprising. Like I actually gave a shit about them. Like I gave a shit about Usagi, I gave a shit about Sailor Mars and Sailor Jupiter, I gave a shit when they were going for this trial and they're fighting the bad guys. I mean, heck, I even gave a fuck about the villains. Like some of the villains, I was like, oh my god, you poor motherfucker.
Yeah, after a while you just get that that was part of it too. Is you cared about the characters. Like I don't watch a lot of anime anymore where I end up like really caring about the characters, like really rooting for these people.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's so like to me, like it's like, well, what's going on with that too? Like, I have to ask, like, what's going on with this too? And so not that I mean, I don't. It's funny. I didn't want to necessarily bash on anime today. I wanted to.
It's fine, dude. Like, let's go.
But anyway, like, but the other thing I kind of like did want to mention too is like we worked really hard to get our stuff. We had you had to either go buy it or you had to go online and you had to get it fan sub. And
if you didn't have a Japanese buddy, you're fucked.
No, you didn't necessarily need to. You just needed to find a good fan sub distributor. That's what you needed to do. And I got a decent fan sub distributor. But the other thing was tape trading. And me and Chuck did a lot of that.
Mm-hmm.
We did a lot of tape trading because like Chuck and I knew basically a circle of guys, right? That we watched a lot of anime and did a lot of other stuff with. And tape trading was a big deal. Like, I remember one summer I borrowed Chuck's VCR. Mm-hmm. for a good chunk of the summer, and it's like I had to go to work, so I gave my brother the job of copying tapes.
Evangelion, I remember that. I remember that one tape made its way around to everybody. Everyone had copies of it.
Yeah, I copied Evangelion for everybody. Yeah, and my brother did, to the point where he got so sick of watching Evangelion. It's amazing. But like, and my brother did me a favor. I'm kind of grateful about that, but because I had to go to work that summer. But that's the I would borrow tapes from him. We copy each other's tapes and stuff like that. And that was one of the ways you expanded awareness. It was partly because it was expensive. Like if you had to be rich to be able to buy these VHS cassettes, right? So it's like what would happen is like one person in the group would specialize in buying, Evangelion. Then the next person in the group would specialize in buying Lane. And then like as the VHS cassettes came out, like, we would buy them, we'd watch them together, and then we'd, hook VCRs together and then copy them. And, that's the way we would share, because like if you didn't, man, you just couldn't afford it. You just couldn't afford it. It was too expensive. So you had to network. You had to meet people. You had to get to know people online. You had to go to when I went to college, I had to, I brought tons of anime back from college. I mean, I brought loads of it back from college and copied a lot of it for the guys back, guys like Chuck back home. When we were home for the summers and stuff. Mm-hmm. And that was and that's the thing is, again, it was a social thing. And one of the things I've noticed, what was streaming, and everybody living their lives online nowadays. I mean, granted, now you have to because of COVID-19. But
listen, no, we don't call it that. We call it.
Oh yeah, the Heineken flu. Let me rephrase that so you can cut that out. We all have to live at home because of the Heineken flu. But but back then, like, before the Heineken flu showed up, you still had the option of going out and meeting people, and like you could go over somebody's house, you could hang out, like, and you could go and you could watch anime together.
And I would love to do that. Like, a lot of the people that I'm like close with, like, and relatively speaking, like online, like, I would love to go and meet these people at their house, like, shoot the shit, hang out, and watch anime together, but I can't because I'm fucking stuck in New Zealand, and most of my buddies are in Europe or America. And by the way, my country is so fucking small and tiny compared to that. Like, you could fit my country like 100 times in the state of Texas. But you get what I'm saying. Like the anime. Well, we're actually not even a fucking community anymore. It's more like fucking cliques. But like it was through anime that I found these people.
Well, the thing is, part of it is if you're going to build a community, right, you have to kind of like value the community more than yourself. And that's like one of the things that, the internet really makes difficult because, right, for me and Chuck, you're a disembodied voice that comes through our speakers or our headphones. So like, we know you're a person, like intellectually, we know you're a person on the other side of the world. But because like you're not here, like we can't physically see you and interact with you. There's this distance. And now, but we can at least hear your voice. Now, remove that even a further step, right? Now I only see text on a screen, right? People will, like, you start treating other people as NPCs. Mm-hmm. And I don't mean as a meme. I mean as NPCs in a video game.
I have a great example of that.
Go ahead.
I played WoW for many a time, and the way I made it through dungeons is I realized nobody could be this stupid. So, I mean, I was a hardcore raider for WoW and all that stuff. I'm not going to go into all that, but
yeah, Fvlminatvs gave me the deep lore on that.
Yeah, I mean, I would treat literally them like dumb machines. That's how I got through doing shit.
Yeah.
But yeah, you didn't treat them like people. You treated them like literal machines. If that makes any sense.
I get a similar feeling. Like when I go onto like the unknown like Discord, like the people that I need to know or are interested in, like I already know them. Like like Chandler's texting, I'll respond to Chandler, or one man cast is talking, or unknown say something. Like I don't really pay attention to like 99% of what goes on that server. Like I just go there on the server to talk with certain people, like you, Fvlminatvs, or Lolly.
That's kind of like what leads into what I'm talking about, though. Is like the way the community used to operate, the anime community used to operate, is almost like a terror. It's going to sound crazy. Almost like a terrorist organization, in that each locality had cells, and then through the internet or through like going, sending people when people moved off to college and then came home on summers or whatever, these cells would communicate with each other. And then then you'd go to cons. And one of the great things about cons was your cell could conglomerate and meet with all these other cells, right? And you could share that. But that's the thing, is it was kind of like, that's why one of the reasons why networking was so important, right? It was less cliquish, but it was like, maybe a better term other than cell is like little hubs and nodes. Gangs, and you had big hubs, like meetings. Big regional hubbers, regional hubs, and then like smaller, district hubs, and then like a bunch of little nodes within that area. And so like, they would, we could kind of network and communicate a little bit like that. Mm-hmm. And we were like vaguely aware that there might be people in the next town over. But it's like, it was more,
was it similar to like playing a World of Darkness game? Like you're playing as vampires in this town. Like you are aware there are other vampires in the next town over, but you don't interact with them. Is it kind of like that?
No, but it was more like you ran into you saw somebody else looking at the stuff at Suncoast Video or Blockbuster.
Mm-hmm.
And then you ended up in a conversation.
Yeah. That sounds about right. But like,
and then you get to like then maybe you can make a friend in another town or go into another school like that way, and stuff. And I mean that's just random chance, but I mean it happens sometimes.
That actually happened to me at school, because this guy came up to me and he said like, "Hey, I saw like you play D&D, right?" And I said like, "Yeah." And he said, "Yeah, I saw you at the there's a place down the road where I play like a local game of D&D." And he said like, "Oh, I saw you down there." I was like, "Oh, I remember you." And I was like, yeah, I play in D&D, and he says like, oh, because I don't want to like there is like some local politicking stuff going down there, but basically it's like there's two comic book shops, there's two like but basically that kind of happened to me where he recognized me because I play a local game there, and the local game is very well known among the I guess you could say like tabletop gaming community. And there are like I live in a small fuck town, so obviously people would recognize me, and people would sometimes would recognize me. It's like, oh yeah, I remember you went there, and I was like, yeah, that was me. And like that actually happens, and I actually enjoy when that happens, because it's like, yeah, oh, I hey, could this guy be a new friend? Could I?
Yeah. Our high school was pretty small. I mean, our graduating class was 115 or 120 people. Mm-hmm. Something like that. We went to a small. We're from small towns, like a couple small towns right next to each other. And but that's the thing is like that's the thing is like one of the things I think people rely on this too much. I think people rely on the internet for their communication, for their friendships, for things like that. And you're not going to get the same. Like scientists have studied this. You're not getting the same effect from meeting people face to face and sharing activities together. But that's the thing is I got lucky because like, Chuck was part of that circle, and, we started talking about anime. We started watching movies together and hanging out and just, chilling. And, it's just that's one of the things that introduced me to anime. I mean, like I remember a lot of it was like junior and senior year, especially like we watched a fuckload of anime at your place.
Oh yeah.
We watched a fuckload of anime. We would go up to Blockbuster Video, rent shit, and we were buying shit at Suncoast, and I remember that the caddy, mm-hmm. the old caddy,
I love that cat.
And I remember like that, and we were talking about Evangelion going to we would go to the diner and we just talk about that show, and that's what people don't get. Like, we would just talk about that show for hours.
And I think that's I think that's half the fucking fun. Like I do light novel podcasts not just because I like reading the books, but I like talking about it. I enjoy talking about it with my buddies.
I remember we went to this one diner and it was me, Undeadchuck, and a couple other guys, and we went there for like lunch, and we ended up staying for dinner. We stayed there, and everything we talked about was Evangelion. Everything. It was the whole conversation was all about Neon Genesis Evangelion. And I mean, again, like, it's hard to accentuate just how important that show was at the time. I completely forgot about Ava R, the Ava R project or whatever it was
always
called.
in the back of my mind.
It's not your fault, dude. Like, when you reach your age, you tend to forget shit.
Well, there was dozens. There were a lot of websites. It's like, that's the other thing. Annie Pike, man. People used to have their own private
anime
like
forums
or Age of Fight. No, not just forums. Like, they had their own websites. Like, everybody had a personal website, and this is also, everybody had a handle, so you were always anonymous. But a lot of people came up with like a handle or a nickname for themselves, and so you would have like Funky Monkey 99's, Rei Ayanami Shrine. And you could go on it. It's just like
Milf
pictures
Slayer
of
69.
Yeah, and so like you would. Really, God, yeah, you would get people with their shrines and stuff like that, or their fan sites. And you had these GeoCities, Angel Fire. You had these huge, like, you had fan fiction repositories. And I mean, 99% of fan fiction is cringe, but every once in a while, you go through it, you would find a gem.
Yep.
Like, I remember reading the one where it was Rama 1/2 versus the Predator.
Oh my God, that sounds amazing.
And that was pretty awesome. I found that like sophomore year of college, and that one was pretty awesome. But like, I remember like reading. Oh God, I can't remember what was like 2008, or maybe it was a little later than that. But I remember reading when Anime Pike finally was shut down. Anime Turnpike, or the Anime Web Turnpike, I think was a full name, but we called it Annie Pike. And that's all you had to do, to type www.anniepike.com, and you could find. It was basically like a huge search engine for anime fan sites, and it was awesome, and it was free, and it was just a passion project. Yeah, and it was just a passion project, and a lot of this stuff was passion projects. I mean, and that's what the community is missing, right? Or that's what projects. Well, passion and the desire to do something to build it up, right? I mean, that's the problem was why I say there's no community. I mean, it's like people just want to just sit there and consume it. And that's like that one guy in I mean, fan, there used to be work that was you had to do to be a fan. Now all you have to do is just post it on Twitter. I fucking had a website at my college. I had to fucking learn HTML. Now, granted, I was never good at it, but I built my own like fan site for shit and stuff. I mean, a lot of people did it, but like, people made shit. People did shit. Like, there was this sense of like,
it's like, wow, this person
like you
really
shared
cares.
A passion.
Yeah,
you all shared a passion. You were all willing to like throw down some of your time and sweat and energy and effort. And it's like you couldn't have that huge Ava R project site.
I mean, look what we're doing. I mean, look what we're doing here. We're spending a couple of hours just shooting the shit about crap, and
that's it though. Like, we're not actually really. I mean, as much as like we're doing more than some, we're still not doing as much as like people used to. And that's the thing is like there was so much effort, and that's the thing is like I look at a lot of these people today, a lot of these kids today, and it's like if the barriers to entry were still here, you'd be doing something else, and that's what frustrates me about it. It's like if the barriers to entry, if anime was, if there were no streaming, if there was no Blu-rays and DVD box sets that were cheap and stuff like that, like if you had to buy $30 VHS, well nowadays $50 VHS cassettes with 2 episodes on them, if you had to do that, you would not be into this at all. If you had to go through if you had to contact people and get your fan subs like the hard way, if you had to wait for 2 years for a show, like that one kid we were arguing, me, Loli and Retsu and shit, we were arguing with that one kid, and he's like, I don't want to wait 2 days for my anime. It's like, dude, we had to wait 2 years sometimes.
Dude, there's some shows I had to wait. Like, there's some shows that I had to wait like a couple of years to fucking watch. Like, Get the fuck out of here.
I mean,
2 days, really?
yeah, exactly. 2 days. He's whining because he has to wait.
He sounds
2
like
days
an
to watch
addict.
something.
Like, please, Daddy, I want my crack. It's been 2 days.
It's like, and again, we waited sometimes months for 2 episodes. Like when Evangelion was being released in the United States, it was released like what I think it aired in 94, 95 in Japan, and VHSs didn't start coming out from ADV until 97, and they started coming out with 2 episodes, and if it was dubbed, it was $30, which again is like somewhere in the upper 40s, low 50s, I think today, with inflation. And so like you gotta wait for months, and like near the end the time between releases started to really stretch out. So it was like I think the tape where Ray dies and the one before it, like taped, I think, what is it, episode 8, what was the one? Okay, tape 9 was episode 18, ended on episode 18.
Yeah, it was around 18 or 19, something like that.
Yeah, so like it was like 19 episode tape 9, the tape 10, which had 19 and 20, came out at the beginning of the summer, and then the episode where Ray dies is like what, 22, I think, or something like that, and that tape came out
around there. Yeah,
and that was the one where also you like found out all the backstory about how Nerve used to be Gahern. And I remember because we watched that episode like 5 times. Again, and that's the thing, is like we sat there, we watched this episode like over and over again to try, like desperately trying to figure things out, put 2 and 2 together, put all this stuff together. And I mean, I had seen it fan subbed because I knew a guy, but like this was, when I came home from college and was watching it with Chuck, we were getting it on the VHSs that ADV was releasing, so we were getting the dubbed ADV, not the fan sub. And but that was like one tape every 2 months for a show that had already been out for 2 years. Like actually bordering 3 years, because that was 1998 when those tapes were coming out. Those last few tapes were coming out. That was in 1998. And so like the idea that you're waiting for 3 years to see the end of a show that ended 3 years before, and you got to wait for months for each tape to come out. Like, and I mean, these kids, and that's the thing, is like, it's not just the oh, things are better today attitude, fuck you, okay boomer shit, right? It's like, no, you don't actually really care about what you're getting. That's the problem. You don't actually appreciate what you have.
And I've seen this a lot with like people of my generation and a little older. Like they have this sort of like nihilistic, meh, don't care. And like a lot of them are really immature. Like I've had like encounters with these people. They're doing like this stupid shit in public and being disruptive. And when I tell them to fucking cut it out, they just stare at me like I'm a fucking retard. I'm like, and I say, look what the fuck you're doing. You're fucking around like.
The sad thing is, if you knocked one of them out for being a jackass, you'd go to jail.
Yes.
Go figure. That's a sad thing. It's just like, and that's the thing, is just like, dude, I mean, that's what, it's funny, like nothing pisses me off. You know this. Nothing pisses me off more than okay boomer. What about you, Chuck?
What?
If some kid comes up, you're talking about, like, if some kid like hears you, talking about anime and stuff like that, the way it used to be, it's like, okay, boomer.
And I just look at him and tell him, that's adorable that you think you have an opinion. It's
adorable. I was like, it's still, I mean, it's insulting.
It's adorable, man.
Yeah,
it is insulting, but it's adorable. They think they're people.
Yeah. Instead of NPCs.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and yeah. But
I give much worse than I get, brother. I'm being nice right now.
Yeah. That's the thing, is these but they don't appreciate what they've got, and that's what drives me nuts.
And when I see that shit, I'm just like, what the fuck has happened? Like, because it's just like, what the, like, and I was talking to my nana about this. It's like, what the fuck is wrong with these people? Like, when I was a kid, I would have been fucking slapped around for doing that shit. In fact, I did get slapped around for doing it.
Maybe you had parents, but but going back to like, and I don't want to bash everybody. Like, that is everybody that's young, because there are a lot of kids, and I have noticed this, right? There are a lot of young people, right, that are in their teens, 20s, and early 30s, who are actually going back and finding the old stuff, are actually going back and discovering some old stuff, because there's a lot of old stuff on Amazon. They got the original the original Super Dimension Fortress Macross on Amazon.
Fuck yeah.
They got a lot of old stuff on High Dive. You know, they have Space Runaway Ideon and the movies.
That
and
shit is great. That shit is great.
And they got all these old shows. And you know, if you can't find it on if you can't find it streaming legally, right? You can definitely find fan subs and stuff. I mean,
yes, get on
you
your...
can find this. You can find this shit on YouTube. Like, even if this stuff is not like lapsed, I think Nozomi Entertainment has like a whole shitload of Dirty Pair stuff for free on YouTube, and they have the official license, I believe.
Dude, I watched Fusugi Yugi, all of Fusugi Yugi on YouTube subbed.
Mm-hmm. I didn't know it was up there.
It was when I was doing it, when I was watching it.
Yeah. Oh, and that's actually one of the good things is that nobody cares about. Like, and that's a shame. It's a shame that nobody cares about
listen,
it.
Fvlminatvs, the reason
but that's
why they
actually
don't care
that's
is
to our advantage.
The reason why they don't care is that majority of anime fans have this like the Sakuga mindset, like, oh my god, it's not pretty, that means it's automatically bad. Rip.
We might have to define Sakuga for Chuck. Sakuga is those moments that are really, really beautifully animated, usually during action sequences or stuff. But like the rest of the time, you see people standing around with mouths flapping and never changing their pose. So it's like that's the Sakuga moment is when like the animation like increases in quality like tenfold. But yeah, I don't think it's just the Sakuga thing. I think a lot of it's like the need to be part of the conversation on Twitter.
Yeah, that as well.
I think that's part of it.
Yeah.
I've come to really despise what social media has become.
Yes.
Because I mean, it's very, very kind of like, I don't know, conformist. And it used to be, like I said, when everybody had their own website, right? Everybody had their own fan page. It was less like, social media, which is, it's like, I'm not even sure how to characterize it, but it felt back in the day, it felt more like going over somebody's house, right? You went to their fan page and that was their house. So you're visiting it, right? Nowadays, it's almost like the way social media works is it comes to you. You don't go to it, it comes to you. And while in a lot of ways that's more convenient, it's also less.
It's because you have these arguments with people where like it just creates a really toxic atmosphere. Like there's some people on Twitter where like I'll post a harmless comment, or something, and then some dude will jump down some person will jump down my fucking throat, like, and I'm like, what the fuck are you on, dude? It's like with Twitter, you get exposed to like the best of humanity and the worst. It's like this fucking cesspool.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know. It's like what I mean, granted, you asked a question though, like, something you mentioned something about what I was talking about with like what happens to countercultures and subcultures when they go mainstream.
Yep.
And that's kind of like I have a love-hate relationship with Toonami for that. I love that Toonami brought over a lot of good anime. I hate Toonami because it helped to mainstream anime. And anime still is not 100% mainstream. I mean, it really still is a fringe thing. The minority of
that's going to change. Like watch it. If the usual suspect,
I don't think so.
But like they're going to try.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. What they'll do is they'll just water it down because the truth is nobody watches Western cartoons by and large. Well, I shouldn't say nobody, but I'd just say most people do not watch Western cartoons. And so the usual suspects, they want to turn anime into Western cartoons. What's going to happen? It's just going to turn into Western cartoons. What I mean by Western cartoons is like not Saturday morning or before school cartoon stuff, right? That's definitely aimed at little kids. I'm talking like cartoons like shit that grown-ass adults watch, even though they're supposedly designed for children, like Steven Universe. Like, that's what they're going to turn anime. And that's what, if they succeed, that's what they'll turn anime into. And it'll just be another dead thing. It'll be like Star Trek Picard or the new Star Wars movies. It's just, it's dead on arrival. It's like nobody gives a shit.
It's a stillborn.
Yeah, it'll be stillborn. And that's the thing is, like, you look at the demographic studies, right? Gen Zers don't care about Star Trek. Gen Zers don't care about Star Wars. Gen Zers like anime and manga. You want to make Gen Zers not like anime and manga? Do this shit to it. Yep. Go ahead. And then that's another thing that'll be dead. And, maybe anime will recover from that and basically become a purely Japanese thing once all the Western money dries up. But how long is that going to take? That's going to take another 20, 30, 40 years before that happens. By then we'll be dead. So,
we'll be like the starters of the punk movement and all those other countercultures will just be gone with the sands of time.
Basically, and that's the thing is like, I mean, such is the fate of all countercultures to a degree. But I mean, that's not what killed. I mean, the anime culture was basically was centered on anime. But what killed the culture was not mainstreaming. I mean, I actually I realized this a couple weeks ago. I was thinking about it.
That's fine.
What killed anime fandom was not anime going mainstream. I mean, it helped. Oh my God, did it help? It was not, but it was not alone, right? Going mainstream, Toonami, shit like that. That was not the only factor, because if Toonami did not have help from things like Facebook and Twitter and the internet going mainstream, because let's be honest, everybody and their grandmother's on Facebook.
Yeah, like honestly, like when I was a kid during the early like 2000s, like if you had internet and shit, like if you're interacting on the internet and shit or playing online games, like that was fucking niche. Like I remember I used to play like video games with my mother and my mother's current partner at the time. Like even that shit was niche. I used to play like the AVP games and all this shit. I used to play like Medal of Honor and Battlefield.
It depends on the game. It depends on the game, because everybody played Super Mario Brothers.
I know, but even
that old saying that, like, oh my gosh, video games are such an I played video games back in like the 1980s and 90s. I'm such a nerd. It's like bullshit, motherfucker. You played Madden, you played, NHL, you played Mario Brothers. Mario Brothers came with the fucking Nintendo, right? It was like, but it came with the fucking.
I know, but what I'm saying is, I grew up with the internet starting to flourish. Like the internet was not mainstream when I was using it, when I was first introduced to it. Like my mother and my mother and her current partner at the time, like they used to have like Medal of Honor, like fucking like gang meetings and shit in the game.
Yeah, but that was still kind of mainstream too. Like Medal of Honor, like the World War II shooters, the brown and gray shooters. Dude, I mean, when I was in college, the jocks and the dude bras played Counter-Strike. Like, granted, they didn't play Half-Life, but they played the hell out of Counter-Strike. Counter-Strike was mainstream. Like some of this stuff was mainstream, and it's like I always cracks me up when I see somebody who was like, oh look, I was such a nerd back in the day, and it's like, oh yeah. Tell me how. And it's like, oh yeah, I played Super Mario Brothers. Like, motherfucker, so did everybody, because everybody had a Nintendo. Or like, I had they had a Genesis and they played Afterburner. Everybody who fucking had a Genesis had an Afterburner.
Okay.
Give me a fucking break, right? It's like, this was not, this shit was not fringe. It's like, did you play Phantasy Star? Yes. Oh, now you're a nerd, because not many people did. Did you? When me and Chuck were in high school, man, there was a pizza place that wasn't far from where we went to school, and it was in walking distance. We could go there, and motherfucker, everybody was there playing fucking Street Fighter and Primal Rage and Mortal Kombat and shit like that, dude.
Okay,
pumping quarters in.
I know, but I wasn't making the claim that I was like some super nerd, but I was just saying that when I got because I got exposed to other stuff on the internet as well. Like I got exposed to stuff that was like not exactly niche, but not exactly well heard of. So it's like I understand what it was like, because the internet had this like mystique to it. It's like, oh, you go on the internet. It's like,
well, that's the thing.
I get the same response when I go to 4chan. Like people see me on 4chan. It's like, wait, you go to 4chan? I said like, yeah, and it's like, is that place full of Nazis? It's like, no.
Well, that's the thing. Okay, what the internet used to be 99% like that, right? Back in the 1990s. Like, again, like Chuck said, you were lucky if you had a 56K modem. That meant you were, or 56K connection. That meant you were kind of like a little bit more well-to-do. I didn't. I had the next step down from 56K. I can't remember what one was.
36? 33.6 something.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, 33.6 or something like that. I had like the next one down, and until I went to college where we had a T1 connection.
Oh God, I hate it when you had that. Oh, I was so jelly.
Yeah, I bet. So,
play Mech Warrior 2 on that bitch.
Yeah, but
dude, I grew up playing Mech Warrior 4. That was great.
But there was a there was a mystique, right, about the internet. Like, normal people didn't do it, or if they did it with AOL, right?
Yeah.
And AOL, like, if you had half a brain, you knew AOL was an amazing scam. The only thing they had that was good was Instant Messenger, which you could get for free. But like, you could tell who was like a normal boomer moron idiot, because they had AOL. And it's like, because you were paying extra money, much extra money for
long distance charges. Remember that?
Huh?
I had to pay long distance charges on mine.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, they used to get you with shit.
I had $190 phone bill one time.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, what would that be nowadays?
A lot of money.
It'd probably be something more like $400 or $500.
And then a beating from your parents.
I didn't get beat, but I got yelled at. I didn't get to use the computer for like 6 months after that.
Yeah, but it's like, you know, that's the thing is America Online used to be it was an enormous scam.
Oh yeah.
But like at some point, like the internet got easier to use, and part of it is the websites, part of it's social media, right? And so all these people could like get off AOL and start actually like doing things on the internet, and all of a sudden like access to and Google actually probably helped this a lot by making searching for stuff so much easier and quicker. And you know, like the internet like used to be, there was the surface that all the normal fags did, and like that was so thin. That wasn't even 10% of the iceberg. That was like the very tippy top. Like 99% of the iceberg was below, right? And that 99% was full of people who knew what they were doing, who to various degrees, like they were all internet savvy. And so you had like news groups where people talked about different stuff like anime. You had these, you know, email clubs. I forget what the hell they call, but like, not email chains. That's a different thing. It was, but an email club where like you would be part of basically you emailed you would have all these threads open in your email, and people would like go in and check, and it was like kind of a precursor to a discussion forum, right? But it used email instead of a forum itself. And there was just like all these other kinds of networking you could do. You could find things, you could find people, and it was very Wild Westy, and it was very open. But that's the thing, is that because it was very Wild Westy, you had to have that level of savvy that the average person did not.
And also have a thick skin.
We were more actually, believe it or not, we were way more polite back then. It was way more polite. No, it's the invasion of all the normies that actually really made the internet impolite, I would argue.
I'm not going to disagree with them there.
Yeah, I would.
Like, I remember going back to forums back then. Everybody, I won't say everybody was nice, but the toxic content was a lot less.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, I remember this one, and I mean, somebody sent me archives of surviving news groups from the 90s about anime, and this one guy, it was hilarious. This one guy was complaining about anime being destroyed and ruined by all the jocks watching Ranma 1/2 and stuff like that. He was, you know, he's lamenting, you know, about how, you know, and it's like, man, if you only knew what things would come in the future. But
yeah, he's almost like the herald for the apocalypse
but
we're
like,
about to live through.
But he got smacked down, but he got smacked down without like the toxic name calling and stupidity. Like people were like, yeah, it was more like, yeah, dude, you're not, you know, you're overreacting. This, and this. It's like people did it without being
facetious.
It wasn't personal.
It wasn't personal, exactly. Yeah, everybody just kind of accepted that this person was ranting, and I'm going through the threads and I'm looking at all these different arguments that were happening in the news groups, and none of it was personal. It never got personal. Everybody was just kind of chill, and it's when the normies invaded that all of a sudden, like, that toxic keyboard warrior developed, where that, you know, that mentality came about.
I mean, the whole thing is back then you to post anything online. I mean, it's the same way you became an anime fan and got into D&D. The one thing I've always said is you have to get over yourself. You have to be able to make fun of yourself. You have to have a sense of humor. That's what people don't have anymore.
And I actually find it, like, the whole internet culture, like, there's all these, like, bully hunters and shit like that. Like, I'm just like, what the fuck is wrong with you people? Like I literally say to people, like, there was a couple of people I knew who were getting mean emails and shit, or mean messages, and I just said, okay, here's what you do. You exit out of the web page, you turn off your computer, and walk the fuck away. And you know.
That reminds me of the cheat code. You remember when you were playing that one mech game?
Yeah.
The one Chuck, that you were this was like back in like the late 90s, but you remember it had like tow missiles. I remember you could shoot tow missiles. That's all I could remember about the game. But you had it, huh?
Was it Armored Core?
Maybe. I remember like somebody was being a real spurg in one of the games. You said like he gave him the cheat code. You remember the cheat code?
Was it all that for?
No, you're close. It was Control Alt Delete, because Control Alt Delete back then, it didn't bring up the task manager. It just literally shut down whatever was on.
Well, it's like one of my favorite things. It's a side track for 1 second. One of my favorite things to do to new people in Battlegrounds and WoW used to be there used to be a mod out there where you could target certain people and you say, to make sure you're not AFK, hit Alt F4. And you would post that in chat, and like half the battle group would drop out.
Yeah,
fucking great.
Yeah.
Because, well, back then you would get a debuff for, I think it was like a half hour or something like that. You couldn't go to Battlegrounds for a half hour. Great.
Fucking
But that's the
savage.
thing is, like, but I mean, it was. But that's the thing is that was hazing, and like, come on, like we like,
Oh
I
yeah,
got it
by the way,
we got it too.
Yeah, dude.
Like, yeah, exactly.
A month
We
ago,
got it, too.
I just learned what the word hazing is, because in New Zealand we call that taking the piss out of someone. And because I was talking to, because I literally explained to these people, like, I literally come from a culture where taking the piss out of someone is like it's like a fucking national pastime.
Hazing. Well, when you're talking specifically about hazing, right? I mean, we in Jersey we call that breaking somebody's balls, but like
we call it taking the piss here in New Zealand.
But when you're hazing, it's specific, right? You haze somebody who's a newbie. You're giving them shit. You're breaking their balls, or you're taking a piss, on them. It's kind of like them paying their dues. It's a rite of passage, right?
And it's never personal.
It's never personal. You just make them shovel shit for a while, right? You give it, or like, man, I mean, it's my God, I remember
Like
the intent behind it is to.
It's you're not malicious. I mean, you're busting their balls.
I mean, like, dude, I remember, like, my one boss when I was in high school, like, he told me to go get a bucket of steam, and I'm like, and I just sat there and looked at him, like, how the hell do you get a bucket of steam? He's like, and he was like, go get a bucket of steam or you're fired. And I'm like, all right. So I go into the bathroom with a bucket. I'm like, he is full of shit. Like, there is no way to do this. I mean, like, snipe hunts is another thing where, you take new hunters, your kid out to go snipe hunting or whatever in the woods, and you end up scaring them and shit. Or like there was headlamp fluid. Like if you're working on cars, like you get the new guy and it's like, look,
headlight
I need
fluid.
I need you to go get headlight fluid. And there's no such thing as headlight fluid. Like there's all these tropes, like and cliched, like, ways to hate.
Yeah, when I was like talking about when I was talking about bullying, I mean like the actual malicious shit. But like I come from a culture where hazing is normal. Like hazing is normal here.
We've got that's the thing is like hazing is specifically like breaking somebody's balls as a rite of passage, because once you've crossed a few thresholds, you've gotten enough experience, now like you've paid your dues, you've stuck with it, you haven't run away, right? Part of hazing is to make sure you really want this. It's like the old story about like the monk having to sit outside the hopeful monk, the person who wants to be the Buddhist monk needs to sit outside the temple for 3 days and 3 nights with no water or encouragement idea. And then it's like, if that's your first test before you're even in the door, right? That's what hazing is. It's like to kind of make, do you really want to be a part of this community? Do you really want to be a part of this society? And so like, there's always there's some degree of hazing. I don't think kids these days have the stomach for that. I don't think they have the wherewithal. They don't have the going on.
Basically, when I was like doing stuff, I literally said like, we're not going to let you haze you. And I said like, I said to him like, I come from a culture where this is relatively normal. Like people will bust my balls and I'll bust it back. Like.
Yeah. Oh my God, dude. Chuck rips into me. He's for past 20 years. Yeah. I'm used to it.
Yeah.
If I didn't, you'd think I was mad at you.
Yeah, actually, yeah.
Yeah. Hey guys, I've got a D&D game I have to attend to shortly, so should we like just wrap this up because we're reaching 2 hours.
Sounds
cool.
Good.
Yeah, we're about 2 hours in. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so
well, unfortunately, I kind of wish we'd have stayed on topic to talk less about anime today, but this kind of turned into an old guy's ranting about.
No, it's fine. It's fine. Like people, apparently there's a niche out there of people who just like to see like a bunch of old guys complain about shit. It's great. There is a market for people, like older fans, like talking about this stuff because it's an insight that not many people do. I mean,
yeah, absolutely correct.
There's very few. Yeah. I was once watching a video about these would be guys probably being around your age, Alpha and Omega Sin, like he was talking about how we got into Dungeons and Dragons and fucking anime and shit, and I really like those videos because it's almost like that's the experience I've always wanted but never got. I mean, now granted, I had my own experiences and those were fun, but it's almost like it's one of those situations where you want something but because you don't have it. It's one of those types of like rose tinted glasses kind of mentality. but
I mean, granted, it was. I mean, we didn't know there was any easier way. I mean, and I will be honest, like I kind of miss those days, but I'll be honest, it's a lot cheaper to like anime and be into it now than it was back then, and it's a lot easier. But that's the thing, is those barriers to entry prevented people who weren't going to be passionate about it from getting in. And now without those barriers of entry, well, just about anybody can like anime now. It's not necessarily...
Yeah. So ending thoughts. Normies ruin everything. Normies keep out.
I wasn't saying that, but still.
I wouldn't say that either.
I'm joking, but listen, this is all satire and parody. But anyway, but ending. So anyway, we should end this here because I think we've just burnt out. I think we've just burnt ourselves out. So this is Bio Gundam. Thank you for listening. And hopefully next time if we do one of these, we'll try and stay on topic, because honestly, like I wanted to talk about like games and shit, but like I've got shit to do. Like unless you guys want to do a part 2,
possibly, yeah.
Okay. We're gonna leave. We're gonna finish the recording. We're gonna stop the video right here. But we might be back for a part 2 where we might be talking about stuff, because I wanted to talk about like Final Fantasy and shit and like all that kind of crap. But anyway, this is Bio Gundam. Thank you for listening, and see you all later.
This is Fvlminatvs signing off.
Bao is awesome.
Bao is awesome. Goodbye.